Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Vibration Translation podcast. Today we have Kelsey, and she is not only a beautiful soul that I have personally met, and she's done beautiful breathwork on me. She is a breathwork facilitator, and she has her website and her company, breathewithkelsey.com. So you can find her on her website, on her Instagram, and I'll link all those down below. And she also guides virtual sessions every Tuesdays, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern time. So I'll definitely be joining that. And if anybody else wants to, links are down below. So Kelsey, would you mind helping us breathe in this moment now?
Yeah, sure. Just as a way to sort of come into this space.
Yes.
Yeah, just I like to think of it as a partition in our day, right? All that it took to get to this point, whatever brought you to this conversation, just taking a moment and finding your seat, wherever you're sitting, straightening your spine, relaxing your shoulders, and first just taking a moment and noticing what's present in your body. What kind of feelings, thoughts, emotions are present. And now just starting to connect with your breath. So just relaxing the shoulders, allowing the eyes to close if that feels good in your body, and taking a nice deep inhale in through your nose. So inhaling in, pausing for a moment at the top, and then exhaling out your mouth. Good. Again, nice deep inhale in, really feeling your chest expand, your ribs. Pausing for a moment at the top and exhaling out. Good. And let's do one more. Again, inhaling in. Again, checking in. Maybe you can feel your heart beating. And exhaling out with a sigh this time, just really feeling any tension leaving your body as you become fully present in this moment. And just noticing here any subtle differences that you feel. And that's not necessarily the type of breath work that I lead in my groups, but that's how I start every group, right? And
Yeah.
we can all come back to our breath and do this throughout our day, right? Just 3 slow, deep breaths can really change our state.
Is there a
So,
reason that
hi.
three? Hi. Hi. Well, okay, first of all, thank you. I was ready to get into it. But is there a reason that three deep breaths? Because I heard this before that it's like all it takes is three deep breaths. Is there a reason that it's three specifically, or?
I don't know. Yeah, I think 3 is the perfect amount, right? It's like the first one you're kind of just dropping in, second one you're getting into it, and then the third is when the body really down regulates.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I needed that due to my technical difficulty stress right before this. But yes, Kelsey, thank you for joining. And I would like to ask you first, would you consider yourself to be on a spiritual path, a spiritual journey, or how would you frame this for yourself?
Um,
The journey of
oh,
life.
yeah, I mean, I think life is a spiritual journey. Uh, yeah, I mean, I believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. I mean, yeah, not
Yeah,
human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having this
mm,
human experience right now. Um,
I
and
feel the
I
same.
didn't always feel that way, but
When did you
um,
start getting into like these spiritual concepts and this feeling that you are not just like a human?
I would say in 2019 is when I really was conscious of it. For most of my life before that, I was very into partying and alcohol and different substances. So it was like I would have these really extraordinary experiences, but I would be under the influence of things, so not really conscious of what I was experiencing or why or able to comprehend and use it as a way to expand my awareness. But in 2019, which is when I stopped drinking, um, is when, I was able to connect with my spirit for the first time.
Beep, beep, beep. Quick little updates. I've been using this Magic Mind thing for some time now, and dude, let me tell you, yesterday, you know how you have those days where you're like, you had enough sleep, you should be energized by all means, but you're not, and then you have some work to do, let's say. This thing, I have not used something that gets you up and going, but like flowing, like not, jittering, but actually like you're zen and you're also energized. This is Magic Mind, and I use this quite a lot, and I'm gonna continue using it because it's really good. Link is down below if you want to use my code MAJAK20 to get 20% off. Cheers! Back to the video. Wow. So would you say that before that time you weren't really able to tap into, I guess, that energetics of your body or what your body was communicating with you? Or was it like muffled?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like completely suppressed down. We all go through different things in life and develop coping mechanisms. And I think I had done a really good job at developing coping mechanisms so that I didn't have to feel anything.
So interesting. Was it through breathwork that you first started like opening up, or was it a different pathway at first? Like what was like a moment where you're like you're, well, I don't know if there's like an awakening moment, but was there like a awakening moment for you, or just little breadcrumbs of something that led you to, for example, breathwork?
Yeah, yeah. Definitely a lot of breadcrumbs, definitely a lot of different practices, and mostly slowing down, right? Like giving myself the chance to actually be with myself. And then I would say my first like aha awakening was in breath work, which is probably why I fell in love with it because and I believe, and one of my favorite things about breath work is that it really meets people where they're at. And so I was ready for this experience where it really just opened me up and I accessed this new level of consciousness that I had never experienced before. And then to reflect on that and be like, holy shit, I did that with my breath. Like I was,
Yeah.
laying on the floor of a hotel. Like, yeah, I was laying on the floor of a hotel room in Virginia, on the like a cross country trip, and was like, "What just happened?"
Was it like a YouTube video you were watching, or?
No, it was in a live virtual session.
Okay.
I had joined this container, and the first week happened to fall when I was on this trip. And talk about movement within movement. Um, yeah, so that was the beginning of it, and
So I have a
yeah.
question. So I've experienced the power of breathwork, and it's like hard to, put into words sometimes what happens. I guess my question is like, did you have like a physical, like really deep relaxation? Did you see any visions? Was it like a clarity? What was that feeling during that live session?
In that first session.
Yeah.
So it was many different things because it really is a journey as you've experienced. And it started with, and what made it so different was the sensation in the body, right? It felt like for the first time ever, I had never experienced anything like this. I was tingling and I also felt like my body was floating, but there was also this deep sense, and the facilitator was reminding me that like I'm safe. So it was like, oh my God, what am I feeling? And then like, oh, but I'm safe. So let me just keep breathing. And so then as I was breathing, all of a sudden I started crying and thinking about my grandfather who had passed away a few years prior. And again, feeling like I was in this completely safe environment within myself and my external surroundings, was able to stick with the breath and just felt my entire body activated in a way that was very foreign to me, right? Because, we all experience different things in our lives that cause us to either shut down sensations or parts of our body. And I personally experienced a lot of like physical um trauma, but in a way, like I was in a couple bad car accidents when I was young. I had breast reduction surgery. So my physical body has had a lot of
Trauma.
trauma. Yeah, trauma where there's scar tissue. And I was, taught from a young age that like pain is bad. So let's numb that pain with
Mm.
medication. And yeah, and so over the years, I had learned that alcohol was a great numbing agent when it came to like
Mhm.
socializing and intimacy and connecting and these experiences that require you to really deeply be in your body. So this experience of breath work, of being in my body in this way, like even right now I'm getting chills, was was so powerful and came, at the perfect time when I was ready to experience it and when I was ready to listen and tend to what my body needed.
And it takes a lot, especially like when we hold on for so long into like stuff energy into areas of our body. It takes a lot of presence and awareness to just be able to unfold that. And of course it's a process of layers, but just to be able to go in and finally like take that step into yourself, like that's huge.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting because so my education is in nursing. So I, went to nursing school and at that point in 2019 had been working as a nurse for about 8 years. And so I deeply understood and know about the body. But there was always this disconnect of like how a body works and functions and feels and operates versus like my own. And so that was really interesting too, right? That I understood that scar tissue is a real thing that creates density in the body. And I understood, a little bit more about the backstory of how I even came upon that virtual breathwork container.
Right, because this breath work, it helped you experience yourself in your body rather than just having that understanding. You had that experience, right? So how
Mhm.
did you go from, just experiencing it to actually feeling like you want to be a facilitator of breath work?
Mm. Yeah. So that actually ties in with what I was about to share of what led me to really the catalyst to this entire trajectory of my life was my period. And, I grew up not loving my period at all, actually hating it. I had really heavy periods. I had lots of cramps. I had acne. And so I went on birth control around, I don't know, 12 or 13 years old. And it like saved me, because I used to go home from school every month on the first day of my period. It was just so heavy
Wow.
and so uncomfortable. Yeah. And so I went on birth control and stayed on it for about 16 years and really just kind of closed off that vital aspect of being a woman. And I had no connection to it at all. So it was around 2019 when I started to have some of these curiosities of like, I know it's not normal to not have a period. Um,
16 years, you said?
yeah, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Like
16 years of
nothing?
being well, 16 years of being on the pill, many
Mhm.
times of like, skipping the sugar pills so that I just like didn't get a period. And then when I would get a period, it would be very, very light. And then I decided to come off birth control just to see what would happen. And I didn't get my period back. And I didn't get my period back for about a year and a half.
Wow.
And yeah, and breath work with So it was, for me, I feel like it was really doing breath work and doing some of Joe Dispenza's meditations. My period came back. And this was like, I was also going down the Western medicine route. I had gone to doctors to have hormonal testing done some different things to see about getting my period back, but it really was the breath work, connecting with my womb space, connecting with my body, and doing these Joe Dispenza meditations that my period came back. And that key unlocked like everything, my womanhood, my soul, and really like reconnected me to source and the universe.
Wow, the power of breath.
Yeah, yeah.
Seriously.
And so that's why I became a facilitator, is the power of breath, because I continued practicing with that teacher, in that container, and then on a one-on-one um basis for about a year. And then and what's cool about breath work too is every session is different, right? Because the breath is the medicine. And so I was able to access and release and process so many different things that I just felt like people need to know about this. People need
Yeah.
to experience it, right? And I had this like weird, you know, dichotomy of feeling like, am I qualified to be offering breath work? And then on the other side saying like, well, I work as a nurse to help people, right? To show up, and hopefully the goal is to help them feel better through different modalities. Is this not the same thing, except a natural and arguably more powerful way? So that's why I became a facilitator, because I just feel like people need to know about this, people need to
Mhm.
experience it. And there are so many different kinds of breath work. So right now I facilitate one specific type of breath work. And you've come to some of my classes when I was living in North Carolina.
Yes.
Um, and so that's
Is it the
another
open
part of it
mouth?
too.
Was it the open mouth? Is it that the one you're most practiced
Yeah.
with?
Yeah. The
And why that one specifically?
From what I've experienced, that technique is the most effective in the shortest amount of time. Um, you know, I've I love the teacher. I love the philosophy behind where this practice came from and what it does in the body. And my teacher, David Elliott, who I trained with, he's an author. I can give you the name of some of his books, and a teacher and an incredible clairvoyant healer. And his philosophy is all about coming back to self-love and healing sexual trauma. And this idea that the root of most of our trauma and most of what blocks us is sexual trauma. And that doesn't necessarily mean in the ways that come to mind first. It doesn't have to mean that, right? Even somebody when you're young looking at you in an uncomfortable way, or if you were a little girl and you were somewhere and you just got this uncomfortable feeling, that is sexual energy that is coming into your
Mhm.
system, right? And throughout our lives, especially as women, it happens over and over and over again in these different situations that we're in. And so the basis of a lot of this deeper work that we're doing is getting into these places and healing that sexual trauma to come back to the heart and to self-love.
Wow.
Yeah. And
So
like,
beautiful.
yeah, I mean, for me, this technique is so powerful that I'm like, why change it?
Yeah.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Wow, there's so much that you said that was just I honestly I never thought of like the sexual trauma aspect as such a big part of what can be such a big part of like breath work. I so I do so personally for myself, I do my yoga practice and then I do like sometimes breath work, but I know what your sessions are usually about 20 minutes, right? or longer?
The active breathing is about 20 to
Yeah.
25 minutes. Yeah.
So, yeah, I haven't been doing like that. And so, for example, if somebody wants to start getting into it, your Tuesday would be a great, place to come into. But also, do you have any recommendations for people that have never done this before and are kind of like, I don't know, because when it's like you haven't done something before, or that as much, you kind of don't know how to like ease yourself into it. Do you have any recommendations for that?
Yeah, it depends, right? Because again, the breath is powerful and you want to make sure that you are in a supportive environment because it can illuminate some deep things. So I have a couple different answers to that. If you're just interested in dabbling in breath work and seeing how it feels, there are tons of YouTube videos, right? Do a nice gentle nervous system reset, manifesting YouTube video. If you know that there is something blocking you in your life, maybe you just feel it, like whether it is a trauma that you're consciously aware of or something that is ancestral that you feel like is just blocking you from feeling your most vibrant, living into your highest potential, I recommend doing a session with a facilitator because you have that support. And yeah, the Tuesday night groups are a really beautiful place to join. Your first group is free, so you can come and join us. And there's also a second group each week that's called verbal integration, right? I'm not a therapist. I recommend that people who are doing breath work regularly do have a therapist, just because if you're doing this deep healing work, it's great to have support. But this verbal integration space is somewhere to come and share, connect, be witnessed. If anything came up, that's the space for that.
I love that because sometimes, honestly, a lot of the times for me, it's just ability to be witnessed in a safe, loving space. That's huge, huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I love about the breath is we're not talking during it, right? So during the breath work session, we share an intention at the beginning. And then there's no talking, like we're in the body. So it's nice to also have this other space where we can talk, but the work is in the body.
Wow. In the body. What would you describe your evolution with breathwork like in terms of opening you up more, like to your heart, to spirit, whatever you call it?
Hmm. What's coming to me is that for me, breath work is that doorway. It opens the door and I have the choice to walk through or not.
Mm.
And right? And like, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I'm human. I resist it often and I'm like, "Nah, I don't want to go there." Like, I'll just do a short one today. Um, but I always know it's there. I always know it's there. And I also, you know, really enjoy and am feeling more and more called to different types of plant medicine. And so for
I was just
me,
gonna mention that. Okay.
yeah. So
Yeah,
for
perfect.
me, it's like breathwork is the doorway that I can walk through into this other realm. And then there are these other plants and substances and modalities that take me even deeper. Well, for me in my own journey, yeah, breathwork has been the gentle and loving door, allowing me to safely enter these other spaces.
Do you practice like breath work when you're on plant medicine? Or is this something you would do before or after?
I feel like all of my answers are it depends, or like I have 3 answers. It depends on uh what plant medicine it is, what the intention of the journey is. I think what's cool about breath work is that you don't need to have anything to do it. And from my own experience, I've learned that sometimes, like if I smoke cannabis and then I breathe, the sessions are really powerful,
Yeah.
which then makes me not want to breathe without smoking. And so then becomes like, ugh. And I also find that, with other plant medicines or substances, like I'm thinking of ketamine, which is something that I've done a few times recently. I don't think that's necessarily a plant medicine, right? That's what I would
Yeah.
call a substance. Um, During that, you're laying down, so I am practicing breath work. I'm not always practicing the intense, fast-paced, active breathing, but I drop deep into a breathing rhythm,
So you
and
feel
that
like
definitely plays a part. Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it and you really break it down, breath, and I'm sure people watching this already know this, but just as a reminder, like breath is our life force, right? Like our breath is what keeps us alive. It is our chi, our energy source. So the more intentionally that we're moving that through our body, of course it's going to change the way that we're feeling and change the way that our body is functioning.
and enhance our awareness of the moment, whatever is coming through. Yeah, I mean, I remember my last ayahuasca ceremony. I was like, in the vomit, like crying, and then one of the facilitators come up and they're just like, breathe. They're just telling me, they're trying to guide me through the breath because it just brings the awareness, whatever's going on, whatever emotion, is purging out in any way, you just breathe and that enhances that awareness.
Totally. Yeah, and it gets you through what you're going through, whatever that is, right? Because you're either gonna die or you're gonna get through it. And if you get through it, it's gonna be the breath that is accompanying you, right? So if you're feeling intense heartbreak or pain or vomiting, right? Like just stay with the breath and know that your breath is your companion in this lifetime.
Like, if you were to give breath like three qualities, what kind of qualities would it have?
I love that question. Three qualities: depth, fluidity, and vitality. Is vitality a quality?
You can make it one.
Yeah, depth, fluidity, and vitality.
Yeah, it's how I want my life to be like.
Right?
That's beautiful.
Same. Yeah, and you know, in this we're living in a really cool time where we have access to more. I mean, we have access to everything, but we have access to more of these modalities and more plant medicines and more guided experiences with facilitators, and that's amazing. And the way that I think about the breath is integration. I think of a breathwork session as life integration. So, whatever other things you're doing, whatever's going on in your life, this is where you come to integrate all of that in the body, right? Because we hear a lot, and I'm sure you've heard a lot with your ayahuasca journeys and other plant medicine journeys. It's about the integration, right? The heightened experience and connecting with the medicine is great, but how do we integrate that back into our life? And to me, that is what breath work is the space to do.
It's beautiful.
Her camera went out for
There we
just
go.
a second. There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
We were talking about breath work. I mean, you know, I created a business around breath work. I love breath work, and I just want to make sure people know that we are such multifaceted beings that it takes more than one modality um to live the way that we want to live. So, in terms of like my own spiritual evolution, it has been breath work and other things, right?
Yeah.
So just but I do feel like breath work is the basis. So if you are somebody that is curious about plant medicine but maybe not quite ready to jump right into that, I think that breath work is the perfect introduction into these higher states of consciousness.
Because breath work, yeah, whenever I was doing breath work, and of course, I don't have as much experience as you, but it feels like you're going into an altered state of awareness. You're not just doing your life, whatever. You're somewhere else. You can be vibrating, like you're having all these like almost like what I would call extrasensory perceptions of feelings in your body. I don't know, like, can you share any like experiences, like any powerful experiences you've had during breath work?
Yeah. I mean, bodily sensations, again, like the experience of your entire body vibrating with your nervous system regulated, right? Like you're not like, holy shit, am I having a seizure? Like you're just calm and feeling it. That is something that is just a really heightened human experience. So that part I've had, it's interesting because I mentioned my grandfather earlier. About a year into practicing breath work, I had a really powerful experience with him where he was there in the session and I had a full on conversation with him. And it was like the realest conversation I've ever had. And
Were
it
you talking out
was,
loud, or was it like
yeah,
in out
I
loud?
was I was talking out loud in between my tears because I was
Oh,
just like, what is going on? It was so incredible and so cathartic. And holding space for others, I've witnessed, you know, handfuls of other people experience the same where an ancestor or somebody that has passed came and was either like putting their hands on them or giving them a message. And, these are often people who haven't had experiences like that before, or don't consider themselves mediums or psychics or often even believe in talking to spirits. So to be able to witness people having those experiences is also really expansive, just to be like,
yeah.
whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Why do you think that happens during breathwork sessions?
Well, because scientifically speaking, once you get enough energy and oxygen moving through your body, your hypothalamus is stimulated, right? And the hypothalamus is what releases endorphins. And so once those endorphins start making their way through the different chakra systems, that's where the body is opening and you're feeling some of this sensation and vibration. And then when you continue breathing with these open chakras, the pineal gland is activated. And as I'm sure you know, the pineal gland is where our body stores our natural DMT. And that's where, the seat of our third eye, where we have these, where we open up to these other realms that we don't access in our everyday human life. Um, and there's something really mystical and magical about breath work too. So I want to leave that in the space as part of it, right? Like scientifically, we can study what's happening in the body in terms of hormonal activity and different um, reactions at play. But there's also this really magical aspect of breath work that through tuning our own instrument in this way, we are able to just access so much more than what we often experience.
In terms of like having a facilitator, and also being in a group of people, you can feel the energy of the group and the facilitator. Like there's some kind of like energetic exchange thing that's going on for me personally, and I feel like my in-person breathwork was always more powerful than by myself.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, and that's why I love facilitating groups because it's true. I mean, the energy of a group expands that energy, right? Like we are all creating one thing. And so it's, uh, yeah, the energy is exponentially higher in a group. My preference is in-person groups because one of my highest values is living a life of location freedom and getting to travel and live in different places. I've created this virtual membership and community so that there can be consistency regardless of where I'm living.
Because right now, where's your practice?
Right now, I'm in New Jersey.
New Jersey. Okay.
Yeah, I'm living at a beautiful retreat center on the top of a mountain in New Jersey, which
Oh
is,
my
yeah,
goodness.
like,
Oh my
yeah,
goodness. That's
yeah.
beautiful. So people can find that on Instagram if they're in the area or want to
Yeah, yeah,
swing
they
by.
do beautiful retreats here. Yeah, I prefer in person, but virtual is just as powerful because here's the thing, like ultimately it's your practice, it's your body. And so if you are ready and you are willing to drop into the practice, it really doesn't matter if we're in person or we're virtual. That same energetic exchange of the group is happening. And, I think we learned more about that through COVID with like virtual Reiki and virtual energy healing. Like shit works through the internet, which is wild to me.
Yeah.
But there's a lot about this world that is completely blows my mind, which is what keeps me interested and wanting to be a part of it. So yeah, it's like a virtual group, you still feel the energy of the group that you're with and the
And
container.
when you said this world, do you mean like what do you mean?
Like the holistic healing world,
Mm,
like
yeah.
I think self exploration, self expansion. I feel like, anybody who's made it this far and is still watching this knows what we mean by this world, right? Like if
Yeah.
you are
Okay.
somebody who's like, I think I want to go try plant medicine, or I'm gonna book a trip solely so that I can connect with this plant, like
Mm-hmm.
that work
Yeah.
that
That
world,
world. That world. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
understand.
I was just gonna again repeat like the mystical aspect of it and just how much that has been erased and um hidden from our lives for generations, right? And so that's a huge piece of it, is helping people reconnect with their own magic and the magic of the universe that we live in.
Yeah, beautiful. Through the life force brush. I had another question. So, in terms of you becoming a facilitator, I think you mentioned something about feeling a little bit out of place. But so, did you experience an imposter syndrome type of feeling, or were you able to just kind of step into it?
Don't we all experience imposter syndrome? Like
You probably.
in every aspect of life, So for sure. Yeah, and at the beginning as a facilitator, the ego is there of like, I need people to have these powerful experiences, or I did something wrong, right? Or I want to be the one to make sure that this is the most powerful experience. Um and that's all ego. So once I let that go and remember that it's about the work, it's about the breath, it's not about me, then I'm able to separate myself from some of that imposter because, yeah, for sure, like I'm young. When I first started facilitating, I was 29, and there are plenty of people in, their 50s and 60s who are like, I've been doing this for 20 years, 30 years. Like, oh, you got certified last year, right? And like that's a real part of life in general, but like if you believe in something and your intention is for it to help people, then that's all that matters. I am a confident person. I'm, a Sagittarius rising, so I present
Me
as
too.
very.
Wait, I'm
You
also
are
Sagittarius. Yeah,
so
that's
confident,
interesting.
right? Like present as confident and optimistic, and so
You like to
I
travel, adventure. That's Sagittarius. There we go.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Freedom, freedom, freedom. But yeah, imposter syndrome for sure. It's something that I think about on a daily basis, especially like trying to grow a business on Instagram. Like, oh, it's a daily thing,
Yeah, it's like how has trust in the universe played a role in your journey? Or do you trust the universe? Are you like, what's your relationship with that connection with, I don't know what you call it, universe, source, great spirit, God?
All of it. Yeah.
All of it,
The
yeah.
the divine. Um, right now, today, my trust is full.
Mm.
Um, I completely trust in the journey, in this moment, yeah, in all of it, in being supported, in myself, right? That I am showing up
Mhm.
to be of service to the divine in everything that I do, and that I'm also human. Um, it's not like that every day, and I've gone through some significant periods of not feeling connected, not being able to connect with anything, questioning everything, wondering like what the fuck I've done to my life, right? And like, who am I? Like,
Yeah.
if you knew me 5 years ago, like I was essentially like a full-time athlete, working as a nurse, obsessed with the gym, going out to the bars and partying and have so many friends. And it's like, so yeah, sometimes I'm like, did I ruin my life? And I find that in those times, it's when I'm not practicing my practices. It's when I'm avoiding sitting still. And then when I actually
Mhm.
allow myself to like break down and look at what's coming up and have a good cry and or like a good couple days of crying, that I'm reminded and that trust is restored.
And I love what you wrote on Instagram. Breakdown always leads. Oh wait, oh my goodness. Breakdown always leads to breakthrough. I thought that was so huge because when we feel like we're breaking down, it feels like a complete like breakdown. Like this is like the end. Like again, like what did I do to my life? Then we
Yeah.
don't like
Yeah.
we just go through it and sit with it, show up for it for ourselves, and then there's so much more bliss coming forwards, and we can step into more and more and more as we embody more of, I guess, as we allow ourselves to feel more of whatever pain we have.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't pass quickly, right? Like sometimes we're in seasons of breakdown, seasons of shedding and letting go and feeling sad. And again, that's just like trusting in the bigger picture. Like for me, I didn't have any religious upbringing. And sometimes, I'm grateful for that, but it also often leaves me feeling like I have no foundational base of a belief system, um, which, you
Do you
know,
feel like your belief system in terms of how you conceptualize the universe, all of life, do you feel like it's still kind of shifting, or do you feel like you kind of found some kind of center in that?
it's still developing for sure.
Yeah. It
And so
will
that,
be.
yeah. But it's like, I'm often like, I need something to believe in. Like, what do I believe in? And I think, especially these days where like, spirituality has become so modernized and marketed that it's like you have to be really discerning with what you're buying into and believing
Yeah.
into because, everybody wants you to believe in what they believe in because that's just how the
It
world
sells.
works.
If you can convince somebody, then
And
you'll sell the
it's
product to them, and.
exactly. And people are really, really magnetizing and they're really
Yeah.
good at portraying what your life will be when you subscribe to this other thing. And so I do feel like, yeah, I have to continuously be grounded in myself, grounded and rooted to know that like truth will find me and to be discerning of what doesn't feel like truth, but also, yeah, I feel like that's why I'm a seeker because I'm like, what do I believe in? I want to learn more. I want to experience more. And I like living that way. I mean, life is an
Yeah.
adventure.
Life is the unknown. We're stepping into it.
Totally.
And I'm working on my trust, but ayahuasca specifically helped me so much. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. And as I walk more into the unknown, the universe shows you that it will always catch you. even though, you
Mm.
take that leap of faith, it will always catch you, even though you feel like you failed. There's no we're just all in the process. There's no failure. Like we just keep going and expanding, and we will always be caught as long as we're, following what feels true to us. And that's just something you're just become to see and see and see more of it. You just ask for that connection, ask to connect. It's
Yeah.
here, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And if you're lucky, surround yourself with people who also seek to live in that way,
Yeah.
you know?
And oftentimes, I mean, not, it's funny because I've been around these people and I've been too scared to talk to them because I put them on some kind of pedestal. Oh, this is like a separate thing, I guess, but I'll just say it. Like last
Yeah. Yeah.
night, I go to this coffee shop. I I just was able to do like some because I usually do poetry and I read it off, but I was able to just channel and just trust and just go up there and have nothing prepared, which I never have done something like that, and just speak. And then it resonated with so many people. And then later I stayed behind and I had like really deep spiritual conversations with all these people that I've like been around. I saw them before, but I always wanted to have these conversations, but I blocked myself off from it just from self-judgment, self not non-acceptance, and it's just crazy because it was always here for me, but I was just like not ready for it. It's like whenever you're ready for it, it'll be here for you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. So that was like an open mic type of
Yeah, it was an
thing?
open mic, yeah.
That's amazing that you went and
Yeah.
you just channeled.
Yeah, I was like, that's
Fuck
the next
yeah.
step. I was like,
Of
let's
course
press.
that's gonna, yeah, of course that's
Yeah.
gonna draw in your people. That's so awesome.
Yeah. So yeah,
What
you'll
was
be
it
quiet.
about?
It was just like the divine, like, channeling like about just every, just like, I don't know, man. Just the connection to the divine, how we're all beautiful. Like whatever was coming through, like about self-doubt, about self-love, about our beauty, about our divinity. And it was all just like that. Yeah. I just like completely. It
That's
was
cool.
cool. So apart from breath work, was there anything else that was big for you as a part of your path in terms of like awakening to yourself or spirit?
Yes, a lot. And I feel like for me, something that was really big and continues to be really big in my journey of life is learning and setting boundaries. And I know that's, not as sexy as saying plant medicine and, working with cannabis, which has been a huge
Ooh,
part
like
of,
yeah.
yeah, I love cannabis. I love cannabis.
Mm,
But what has been really powerful for me is recognizing the people that I grew up around, even within my own family, right? Like how I am separate from them and really stepping into who I am and noticing how how strong those ties are to certain people in our lives that need to be cut. That the cords
yeah.
need to be cut, right? Like not that those people need to be cut out of your life,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that some of the that some of these really entangled energetic cords of not feeling good enough or being afraid to speak my truth or being afraid to share how I'm feeling. I'm a very emotional person. I feel things so deeply. And not everybody experiences life that way. And not everybody can handle being around somebody that does express in a big way. And so I learned how to suppress that from a young age. And I would say one of the biggest parts of my evolution is learning and practicing owning that and not feeling shameful that something makes me upset but doesn't make other people upset, or not feeling guilty about setting a boundary that I know is in my best interest because it might upset somebody else. Or right? And recognizing that boundaries aren't about putting walls up, right? And keeping people out.
Mm,
Boundaries
that's a good one.
boundaries let people in and create safer containers within relationships. And not everybody responds well to boundaries or respects boundaries. And yeah, boundaries is huge.
Setting boundaries like for yourself and displaying that is like a huge, like, not that you need a permission slip, but it's like a permission slip for other people to be able to recognize that and do the same for themselves and create, safer space for both of us. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because a lot of people are just, I feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like the whole boundary thing in our society is also another like confusing aspect where you see a lot of videos on it. Everybody's saying like a different thing about that.
it's a
It's so
big
messy.
buzzword right now. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of especially younger people in, like teens, 20s, 30s that are waking up, it's like you have to realize that you have decades of life that you've lived in a certain way. And so to think that like everything's just going to change like that and you're going to be, this different person living in this different world is not realistic and not often sustainable. So it is, yeah, learning every day what feels nourishing for you, what feels like it's supporting you on your path, and
Yeah, it's
what
a big
isn't.
thing. It's a big thing you just said. I definitely did have this perception before where, oh, I would take this plant medicine and I would just like transform completely. I mean, it is extremely transformative. I've had 16 ceremonies. My last one was like insane, but like right now, what's happening, even me doing this is like my integration. Everything, like last night,
Yeah,
what was happening, that was that's everything is my integration. And it's, I think for me, it's, I mean, I just think it's all about just having that deeper connection with self, therefore with source, you know?
totally. Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, and remembering, again, bringing it back to like a little bit of a scientific perspective that our cells have memory, right? So if you think of cellular memory, so you have this plant medicine experience, you transform into this other human or this other, right, entity, our cellular memory is going to kick in and go back to what we were, right? Until we continue to live in this new way and do these new things, step out of our comfort zone and channel at an open mic night, right? Like that's
Yeah.
teaching
Yeah.
the body like, oh yeah, and so it does take time for the body to catch up to these changes.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I'm sure like with breath work too, you were like untangling whatever neural pathways or, things in, you probably know the things in your body. But yeah, like with psychedelics, they just open up those bridges between, loosen up the bridges between certain neural pathways that were holding us stuck. And now in integration, you have a chance to rewire them, but they can go back to the same place if we are not conscious. And that's why integration, the last place I went to called Dragonfly Awakenings, they're having another retreat in May with Taita Juanito is a really like well-known shaman, and like they have incredible integration before, during, after. They spend so much time with you. And one of the things is like they, at the end of it, after your ceremonies, it's like you write down your action steps. Okay, now what am I gonna do? It's like, now what am I gonna do? Because you have that choice. In this moment now, you have that power, you have that conscious choice. You're able to tap into it and now transform your life into something just so much more like just magical.
But yeah, I mean, one of the main draws of, again, I'm going to go back to ketamine because that's something that I've recently
Yeah.
been learning about and experiencing. Ketamine is becoming more mainstreamed and used as, a treatment for treatment-resistant depression. And what it's actually doing is creating the most potent neuroplasticity in the brain, right? So we now know that through neuroplasticity, we can alter and change these pathways of how our neurons fire, which leads to how we think and how we feel and how we act. And what happens is, yes, you feel super calm and relaxed after your ketamine experience, but for those next 5 days, you're at a peak point for creating these new chemical pathways, which means exactly what are your action steps? What routines and rituals are you going to do every day following this experience, right? I'm going to wake up and I'm going to journal for 5 minutes. I'm going to move my body. I'm going to go stand on the ground and look at the sun for a few minutes. What are you going to do so that these changes can happen while they're in like the most potent time? Otherwise, it's going to just go back. And in a couple weeks, you're going to feel exactly how you felt before you went. So with all of this, yeah, it's really about taking the time to integrate.
Yeah, and it's not to like be scary, like you're gonna go back to where you were, but it's like
Yeah.
it's more to like empower you to be like realize that you have the power and the choice right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's incredible. Like, what a gift.
Ooh, yeah, and it can feel like a lot of responsibility, but it's like it's your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we get
And
to
not
create it.
everybody has the time or the means to go to Costa Rica, to do ayahuasca,
Yeah.
right? Not everybody is, because as we said earlier, like, or I don't even know if we said this, but I'm sure you've said it, when it comes to plant medicine, like you need to make sure that the medicine, where it's coming from, the people who are holding those spaces are reputable and trained and with good intentions for that space. And not everybody has access to that. And that's why I think these practices like breath work, like yoga, like qigong, right? Like these are really powerful modalities to help people along their journeys, to see where it leads them, to see, it's like you come into some of these spaces that maybe you never would go in, and you meet people that you never otherwise would meet, and your life can really change.
I think that's a good point to conclude.
So, yeah, let's end the way we started, with 3 deep
Let's do
breaths of, again, noticing if, you've been listening or watching this and maybe you're feeling a little restless to get up. Just give yourself the next 30 seconds to sit and relax for a moment. Take a nice deep inhale in through your nose. And as you exhale, relaxing your shoulders, pausing for a moment at the bottom. Inhale in, nice, deep, full breath. And exhale out. And one more, inhale in. And exhaling all of that out. Coming back into your day with a fresh mind, revitalized energy, and an open heart.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. And once again, just a reminder, all the links will be down below in the notes or the YouTube description section. So we have the Instagram, the website. Anything else you like to mention?
Yeah, connect with me on Instagram. That's where I post most of my groups.
And join in the virtual session. So
Yeah.
I will be coming. Anybody from here that wants to, we will be there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was nice to have this conversation and share a little bit. I think the more that we can share and open up to other people, the more that this truth and love and connection will prevail.
Yes. Yes. Open the heart. Open, but gently. Open the
Yeah.
heart. Open the heart. Awesome.
Okay.
Well,
Bye.
thank you and bye.